The alien council, confident in their control over the galaxy, stumbles upon Earth's long-sealed archives. What they uncover forces them to reconsider their assumptions about humanity's extinction and the implications of what they find threatened. To unravel everything the council has built. The silence in the council chamber was deafening, thick with the weight of impending decisions. The glowing projection on the central screen showed an ancient Earth symbol, a seal broken, a lock undone. Behind it, the digital remnants of humanity's forgotten archives lay open exposed. "It's impossible," Counselor Krylos muttered under his breath, eyes wide as the information streamed across the room. "These files, they should have been destroyed with Earth." The leader of the council stood motionless at the center of the room, his hands clasped behind his back. His sharp eyes traced the lines of data as it appeared on the holographic screen. Something had changed. The Terrans, the humans, were no longer just an anomaly. They had left something behind, something that could no longer be ignored. "You were certain we destroyed everything," the leader said, his voice tinged with cold disbelief. "You assured me their archives were sealed for good, that nothing would survive." Krylos, who had once been so certain of humanity's eradication, took a step back, his face paling. But now they're wide open," the leader interrupted, his voice cutting through the room like a blade. "Do you understand what this means?" A flicker of something, fear, maybe regret, crossed Krylos' face, but he quickly masked it with a hasty defense. "It shouldn't be possible. Those archives were never meant to survive. The Terrans had no way of knowing their own history. It was buried, erased." "And yet," the leader replied, his gaze unwavering as he stared at the data pouring from the archives, "it was never truly erased, was it? The archives held everything, their technology, their history, their thoughts, and their secrets." The leader felt the rising tension in the air. The Terrans were not as forgotten as the council had believed. There was something in these records that threatened their control over the galaxy, something they couldn't afford to overlook. "Who else knows about this?" the leader asked, his voice a low growl. Krylos hesitated. "No one." "These files were locked away, yes," the leader finished, his mind racing. "And yet, here we are. They've been unlocked. The question is, why now? Why would humanity leave this behind? And what does it mean for us?" There was a flash of light on the screen, and suddenly the room was filled with ancient images from Earth's history. The leaders of the human race, their achievements, their wars, the lives they had lived, the empires they had built, all laid bare. "We knew they were powerful once," Counselor Eric spoke up, his voice wary, "but we didn't realize they kept so much. Their knowledge, their advancements. How did they even have time to archive it all? They were on the brink of extinction." The leader's eyes narrowed, focusing on a specific section of the archives that now glowed before him. A sequence of documents, perhaps the most ancient of all, started to emerge on the screen. The words "Project Exodus" flashed across the screen, and the leader's breath caught in his throat. "Project Exodus," the leader repeated softly. "This is ... what is this?" The room fell silent, all eyes now locked on the screen. The documents were encrypted, but they weren't impossible to crack. The leader's finger hovered over the command console, but something in his gut told him that rushing into this would be a mistake. "We need to know what this is," he ordered, his voice steady, but his mind reeling. "Decrypt it, now." As the technicians worked, the screen shifted again, and a new file was unlocked. This one was not just data, it was a message. The leader's heart thudded as the words began to form. Earth's legacy, the truth revealed. The room was still. Every council member's breath held. What had they missed? What were the Terrans hiding? What had they left behind, and why? The message continued. The archives are open now. We've prepared, for you. The galaxy is not as you remember it. We were never gone. We've been waiting. We know what you've done. And we are coming. A chill ran down the leader's spine. The room's temperature seemed to drop. He could feel the weight of those words pressing in on him. The Terrans were still here, alive in the archives, in the legacy they had left behind. They had planned for this moment the Council had underestimated them, and now the door they had sealed away was wide open. "Prepare for everything," the leader said quietly, his voice filled with newfound urgency. "They have prepared for us. And now we must prepare for them." Counselor Rylos' face was pale as he glanced nervously at the leader. They've been waiting this whole time, after all these years?" The leader's eyes were steely with resolve. "Yes, and now we see what we failed to destroy." The room fell into silence once again. The Terrans had been waiting for this, for their archives to be unlocked, for their return to be inevitable. They hadn't just survived, they had planned. And the Council? The Council had walked blindly into a war they hadn't prepared for. As the holographic message flickered out, and the screen went black, the leader turned to face his council. The challenge was clear. They had made a deadly mistake in underestimating humanity. "We have no choice," the leader said, his voice filled with cold determination. "Now we finish what we started." And that was before Earth even responded. The council chamber was tense. The weight of the leader's words hung heavily in the air, and the atmosphere was thick with uncertainty. The message from Earth's archives had shaken the foundations of everything the Council had believed. The Terrans' humanity had not just survived, but had been waiting, planning. For what? The Council didn't know, but the realization was undeniable. They had underestimated Earth once again. The leader stood at the center of the room, his back straight, eyes fixed on the holographic map of the galaxy. The projection of Earth, once a distant and irrelevant speck, now flickered ominously at the center of the screen. The archives were no longer just a relic of a forgotten race, they were a living, breathing threat. And the message from Mars had only begun to unfold. "We have made a grave mistake," the leader said, his voice low but commanding. "We thought we had erased humanity, but they've been waiting for this moment." Counselor Eric shifted uneasily in his seat. "So, they've been planning their return all along? How could we have missed this?" The leader didn't answer right away. His mind raced as he thought back to the years of conquest, of domination over the galaxy. The Terrans had been a distant memory, erased after their world was destroyed. At least, that's what the Council had convinced themselves of. But this was something else. The archives had been sealed, locked away, hidden beneath layers of technology, and now they were wide open. "What else does the message say?" Counselor Krylos asked, his tone urgent. "What exactly have we missed?" The leader turned to the projection of the archives once again. "The message is clear," he said. "Earth's archives were sealed for a reason. But now they're wide open, and the Terrans are coming back. They've been preparing for this. They know exactly how to strike when we least expect it." A flicker of hesitation passed over Rylos' face. "They've been waiting this whole time? For us to make a mistake? What did they want from us? We wiped them out. We destroyed their world, their civilization. There's nothing left for them to reclaim." The leader's gaze hardened. "You think they want to reclaim something? No, Rylos. What they want is far more dangerous. They want to show us something we missed." The data on the screen shifted and a new file appeared, one marked Project Rebirth. The leader's breath caught in his throat. He had seen these words before, in whispers, in legends. But now, here it was, in undeniable digital form. Project Rebirth. the leader muttered under his breath. This ... This can't be real. The council members looked at each other in confusion. What is it? Krylos asked, his voice filled with suspicion. The leader's mind reeled as the data from the file began to reveal itself. The Terrans had never been wiped out. No, they had. Planned for this very moment, for the day the council would let their guard down. And in the archives, they had left a blueprint, a map of systems, of colonies, of hidden technologies. But it wasn't just information. It was a call. A call to arms. They're not just survivors, the leader said, his voice shaking with the enormity of the realization. They've been rebuilding, not on Earth, but across the galaxy. The Terrans have seated themselves in hidden colonies, in systems we thought were under our control. They've been watching us, learning from us, and now they're ready to strike. The room fell into stunned silence as the weight of the leader's words sank in. The archives were never just about information, the leader continued, his voice filled with a new, terrible understanding. They were a map, a guide to their survival, to their return. And now they are moving. Counselor Krylos' face paled. They've been watching us all this time. They knew we'd come for them. And now they're coming for us, the leader said coldly. The signal from Mars wasn't a message, it was a warning. Do they even know we're here? Counselor Krylos asked. His voice trembled, his mind still trying to process what was unfolding. Do they know what we found? The leader's eyes narrowed as he focused on the map once more. They know. They've been waiting for us to open their archives. They knew this day would come, and they are ready. Then what do we do? Krylos asked, his voice laced with panic. What's our next move? How do we fight something like this? The leader's gaze hardened as he turned back to the council. We fight like we always do. We prepare for war. But this time, we don't underestimate them. This time, we prepare for the humans to strike first. A wave of unease rippled through the council. The Terrans had never been considered a threat. They were primitive, backward, weak. At least, that's what they had thought. But now, as the files on the screen revealed more of their secretive, far-reaching plans, it became clear. Humanity had been far more capable than they had ever realized. We mobilize, the leader ordered, his voice like steel. Send the fleets to every system marked in those archives. We can't let them gain any more ground. We fight them on our terms, before they can strike. The room erupted into a flurry of activity as the council members gave their orders. But in the midst of the preparations, the leader remained still, staring at the map of the galaxy. Earth, the once forgotten planet, now lay at the center of their attention. The Terrans were not the broken, defeated species they had assumed. They were a force, and they were coming. And as the leader turned away from the projection, his mind racing with the enormity of their next move, one thought repeated over and over in his mind. The council had not just underestimated humanity, they had miscalculated the cost of erasing them. They thought it was mercy, the leader whispered. It wasn't. And that was before Earth even responded. The tension in the council chamber was palpable, a heavy weight that pressed down on every member. The projections on the screen flickered, showing a galaxy now brimming with danger. The Terrans' humanity had not only survived, but they had quietly been laying the groundwork for their return. The archives that had been sealed for centuries had been cracked open, revealing a network of secrets the council had never imagined. And now, with their plan laid bare, the leader of the council knew that war was inevitable. We've made our move, the leader said, his voice steady but filled with quiet rage. Now it's their turn. Counselor Krylos, ever the skeptic, eyed the projections warily. But we don't know what they're capable of. All these years they've been hiding, biding their time. We thought we had erased them. But now that we've uncovered their archives, what if they've been waiting for this? What if they know our every move? The leader's gaze darkened. They know. They've been watching us, preparing. This isn't just a battle for survival. This is a reckoning. The Terrans are no longer the weak, primitive species we once thought. There's something more. Counselor Eric's, who had been quiet until now, spoke up, his voice trembling. So what do we do now? We can't just charge into battle without knowing what we're facing. Their technology, it's primitive, yes, but what if they found something we didn't foresee? The leader's eyes shifted to the map of the galaxy displayed before them. Earth, once a small dot in the grand expanse of the galaxy, now burned with an ominous red glow. We fight them, but we do it carefully. We hit them where they least expect it. We show them that we are still in control. But above all, we send them a message. Humanity was erased once. It won't happen again. Krylos clenched his fists, his mind still processing the enormity of what they had uncovered. But they've been hiding for so long, he said, his voice laced with fear. What if they've developed something beyond our understanding? A weapon we can't even begin to fight against? The leader turned to him, his expression cold and resolute. We'll find out soon enough. But we have to act before they do. The room fell into a hushed silence, each member grappling with the implications of the leader's words. They had always been in control, always a step ahead of their enemies. But now, for the first time, the council felt the weight of vulnerability. The Terrans, thought to be extinct, were alive and waiting. And they were no longer the forgotten relic of the galaxy. They were a force to be reckoned with. The projection shifted again, showing the Terran fleet. Small, primitive ships, yes, but they moved with a precision and calculated intention that made the Council uneasy. They weren't just survivors. They were strategists. And they had waited for this moment, for the day the Council would let its guard down. We need to get ahead of them, the leader said, his voice firm. We need to know everything they're planning. And we need to strike before they have the chance to organize. Counselor Thalos turned to the screen. They're not going to sit back and wait for us to attack. They'll be moving soon. We have to be ready for anything. The leader nodded, his expression hardening. We will be ready. But we need to move quickly. Send scouts to every system they've marked in their archives. If there are hidden colonies, we need to find them. If there's new technology, we need to uncover it before they can use it against us. The council members exchanged looks, each one silently acknowledging the weight of the leader's words. The Terrans had been waiting for this moment, and now they were no longer a species to be dismissed. They were a threat that could change the course of history. A loud ping from one of the consoles interrupted the silence, drawing everyone's attention. A new message was coming in, a signal from Earth directly from the Terrans. It was unlike anything they had expected. Put it through, the leader ordered. His voice now sharp with urgency. The projection shifted, and the familiar face of the human commander appeared on the screen. But this time, the expression was different. There was no fear, no pleading. There was only cold resolve. We've been waiting, the voice said, its tone low and steady. And now we're coming for you. The leader's eyes narrowed. This was no longer a message of survival. This was a declaration of war. The Terrans had found their voice, and they were ready to make their move. The Council's time of unchecked power was ending. This is it, the leader said, his voice filled with quiet anger. We have no more time for hesitation. Mobilize the fleet. Send the message across every channel. Earth has opened its archives. And now, we will show them that the Council still rules this galaxy. Counselor Krylos glanced nervously at the projection of the human commander, whose face had already begun to fade from the screen. "We underestimated them once. We can't afford to make that mistake again." The leader turned away from the screen, his face a mask of cold calculation. "No more mistakes. We've already let them get too close. This time we end it." As the council members scrambled to prepare, the leader stood still, his gaze fixed on the now blank screen. The message from Earth was clear. The Terrans had survived, and they were not going down quietly. "Prepare for battle," the leader said, his voice low and dangerous. "Humanity was erased once. It won't happen again." And as the council readied itself for war, the leader knew that the galaxy would never be the same again. The Terrans had opened the door, and now the council would have to face the consequences. The council's fleet was in motion, every ship now locked onto its target. The leader stood at the head of the command table, staring out at the stars on the holographic map, but his mind was far from calm. The message from Earth had shaken him. The Terrans' humanity had not only survived, they had been planning. They had been waiting. And now the council had to face the consequences of their arrogance. "Report," the leader commanded, his voice sharp, slicing through the tense silence in the room. "All ships are in position," Counselor Eric's replied, his hands moving across his console, finalizing the fleet's placements. "We are prepared for an immediate strike. But there's one thing we can't ignore: the Terran fleet. They're still moving with strange precision. We've underestimated their tactics before. They're not as primitive as we thought." The leader didn't answer right away. His mind focused on the Terran ships that had been appearing across the galaxy, their movements calculated and deliberate. They weren't rushing into battle. They were waiting for the council to make the first move. They were playing a long game. "They're trying to draw us in," the leader said finally, his voice barely a whisper but filled with chilling clarity. "They want us to strike first. They want us to show our hand." Counselor Thalos, ever the skeptic, stepped forward, his tone filled with both anxiety and resolve. "What do we do? We can't sit back forever. We need to hit them. But what if they have a trap ready for us? What if the Terrans have something else hidden in their archives that we don't know about?" The leader's gaze remained fixed on the projections. "We don't have a choice. We strike first, but we do it smart. We need to hit them where it hurts before they can gather enough strength to strike back." A sudden beep interrupted the conversation, and the technician at the back of the room jumped to his console, quickly analyzing the incoming signal. "It's from Mars," the technician said, his voice tight. "The Terrans. They're sending something back." "Put it through," the leader ordered. The holographic screen flickered to life again, and the familiar face of the human commander appeared once more. This time, however, there was no defiance or bravado. The face, although stern, held an unspoken weight, a sense of inevitability. "We've seen your preparations," the commander's voice echoed, steady and emotionless. "We've been waiting for you to make your move. You think you can erase us, that you can dictate the galaxy's future without consequence. But Earth's archives are open now, and there is no closing them again." The leader's jaw tightened. He had anticipated a response, but not like this. The Terrans were no longer hiding. They were making it clear they were ready, they were prepared, and they were not afraid. "You've already lost," the human commander continued. "You're fighting an enemy you can't see, an enemy you can't understand. We've been watching. You can't fight something that's already won." The screen flickered again, and the face of the commander disappeared. The room was silent. The leader's hands clenched into fists. This wasn't just a fight for control. It was a war of ideologies, a war over dominance that they had believed was theirs by right. But now the Terrans had shown them the error of their assumptions. "They think it's over," Counselor Rylos whispered, his voice filled with growing fear. They think they've already won. The leader turned sharply to face the council, his eyes burning with determination. Not yet. But they will soon realize the cost of their arrogance. We'll strike now before they have a chance to organize. We cannot wait for them to make the first move. This time, we act on our terms. As the leader gave the orders to move the fleet into position, his thoughts raced. They had come so close to total dominance. They had erased humanity from the records, believing them nothing more than a ghost in the machine. But now, as Earth's archives lay open, they realized their mistake. We've been watching too, the leader muttered, staring at the empty space where the human commander's face had been just moments before, and they don't know what we've been hiding. The room hummed with the quiet intensity of the moment. The Terrans thought they had already won. They thought humanity's resilience had already been proven. But the council wasn't finished. There was still a battle to be fought, and it would be fought with everything they had. The projection of the galaxy shifted, showing the council's fleet moving into position, weapons primed, ready for the strike. The leader stood tall, watching. The map unfold before him. The Terrans had played their hand. Now it was time for the council to do the same. Prepare for war, the leader commanded. It's time to show them that mercy isn't an option, and it never was. As the fleet surged forward, the galaxy trembled in anticipation. The battle for control had begun, and the council, for all its arrogance, had made one critical mistake. They had underestimated humanity. They had believed they could destroy them. But the Terrans were more than just survivors. They were a force that refused to be erased. Council would soon learn that some mistakes couldn't be undone. And now Earth was no longer the forgotten world of the galaxy, it was the center of a storm the Council had brought upon itself, and that was before Earth even responded.